welcome to first of our Twitter Spaces in a little while. We've been through the mint and the reveal and kept our heads down in the last couple of days, so it's good to finally get back out and talk to people. Hope everyone's doing well. Let's just set the table with the format and what we've been doing first. So we're going to talk for about 30 minutes, we think, just discussing the roadmap, which is why we're here, of course, and the accompanying Medium article, which has just gone out in our announcements channel in the Discord. Roughly anyway, and then we'll spend about 30 minutes going through your questions. So we want this to be an hour. We want it to be easily digestible for the guys that can't make it and listen to the recording as well, so that everyone just has maximum clarity on what we're saying, where we're going, and what the future looks like. So if you do have questions, drop into the Discord. We've got the AMA questions channel. Most of you know that already, but if you're new, welcome. Come and join the Discord. Links in our bio, and you can come and drop in the questions that relate to the roadmap and the future and all the sort of utility questions that have been flying around the lodge and all the other channels in the last few days. So that's kind of our format for the day. On Monday, we posted an announcement sort of explaining our approach around the roadmap. And I thought that we should probably start there for the first couple of minutes, because that takes us back to the beginning. And our thinking is we were building this community months ago now. So that we were listening to conversations post-reveal in the lodge, because there was a lot of concern around our lack of communication around the roadmap and why we were being coy on future plans. So we wanted to just get out in front of that, and rather than just sit there quietly, we wanted to just take this head on and really give people more, but also just what they were asking. So it worked for a while when we were building our pre-sale community, if you like. So we were very clear with that group of people for weeks on end around our stance on roadmaps. We always wanted to under-promise and over-deliver, which, as I said in the announcement, is a big cliche in Web3, but we genuinely felt that that was the best way of delivering maximum value to collectors. We have been influenced by a number of projects that have worked very, very well on that front. So that was always our intention. We were going to go and build quietly and then drop some moments of like, wow, you've done this for us, fantastic. And we stealth launched the rat milking game as part of pre-sale on that exact same philosophy. We did that with all the right intentions and all the right reasons. And I think as we got to the reveal and new people discovered the project, we found, in fact, one of the things that we would all consider we overlooked was that new people found us and they didn't have that track record and relationship with us, the project team. So they didn't either have the experience to trust us, or they didn't understand why we wouldn't be loud and proud about the things we want to do. And so that approach effectively didn't work with new people. There were thousands of people it did work with who have either continued to stick around and will continue to stay with us, or people who have sold and moved on. And so we've got a completely different collector base this week than we had last week and we had in the pre-sale period. And we've got to acknowledge that and reflect it in our change of direction. So we had a conversation as a team, and the roadmap that we were planning to tease and spoil and bring out over a number of weeks as we move forward in our build out of the Weirdoverse is up front and center now. So if you head back to our Discord, go to the announcements channel. About 30 minutes ago, we posted a Medium article with Ghostbrett's amazing graphic to summarize what's on there and where we're going. And so you can find out for yourselves what our plans are and what we intend to do. Right, guys, on to the reason we're actually here, the roadmap. And I think it's right that we start with the big vision that sits right at the center of Ghostbrett's graphic and the Medium article. You can't take your eyes off it. It's an animated series, so the secret's out. Why did we lead with such a bold ambition?
Is this the question?
That's the question. First question of the day. Why have we gone with something that's so big to start with to lead things off?
Okay, who's the question to?
It's to CryptoJack.
Okay. I will start, but I'm sure Matt will be able to add a lot of color here. I think it's super important to say that we've been working on this project for 7 months now. Hopefully, just to kind of set the tone, hopefully those of you who have joined recently have taken the time to notice the huge variety in the art and the PFPs, and we really did want to focus on that. These 14 factions across 2 sides, you know, there's the variety in these collections, the thousands of components that make up these individual characters, and this kind of heady goal of trying to create a generative collection that looks like one of ones is something that I think that maybe not everybody who's new recognizes that, but if you take some time, the breadth of these characters is enormous, and that's deliberate, and that, as you can see from kind of the roadmap phase one, establishing kind of the characters in the story has always been the most important next step to us. So why are we talking about the animated series now? Well, like I said, it's a huge undertaking, and we have seen so many projects come out, overpromise and under deliver. We recognize the size and scale of the journey that we're about to launch. We've been speaking to advisors. Matt's got a huge amount of experience, kind of having worked on animated, in this sphere before. So we've kind of been holding back, and we know that this journey is going to be an exciting one. We know that it's going to require several stages. We're going to need to build the foundations, but we kind of reached a point where we wanted to share that excitement, that ambition, and vision with, both with the people who've stuck with us. I can see kind of a huge number of them in the audience, Austin, Taino, who've been around and believing in the project, but also the new people who, most of them bought first and then came to find a roadmap afterwards and were disappointed that perhaps there wasn't one. Well, now we want to make sure that kind of we are very clearly stating our intent, our vision, and the direction of the project. And, this is effectively like a well-funded startup now. So, startups have visions, startups need to lay their stall out and explain kind of the direction of travel and where we want to be. And we thought it was very important that we started with that kind of big picture vision, but then hopefully you can see from the roadmap that we've broken that down into the steps. It's not a vision that exists absent of reality. It's a vision that very much, takes into consideration, how we want to get there and what we need to do along the way to achieve that. And let there be no doubt, this is an audacious goal. Some of you may have heard of BHAGs, big, hairy, audacious goals. This is one of those. But we've been building the team, we've been building the treasury, we've been building the experience and the relationships and networks to set out now in that direction and bring something incredibly fun and exciting, and very different, we think, to the community. We don't think any other project in Web3 has started out with this kind of strong, rich character base and narrative that the Weirdos have. So it felt like it was the right time for lots of reasons.
Yeah, I would agree. I don't know if I should just jump in as well. But yeah, I mean, I think from my perspective, I've since series 1 of the OG collection sold out, it was probably the first time that I actually thought to myself, this really could potentially lead to an animated series. I've been working in animation for 15 years, largely in motion graphics, with a fair amount of character animation experience. So it's also the kind of thing very, very early on that I spoke to the team about. We were completely aware of the difficulties that one can experience when trying to achieve such a lofty goal. But I think a big part of firstly, not being upfront about that initially was, it's so dangerous if you're using that kind of, what we didn't want to do was like be super upfront about this show and get that to be the thing that makes your collection mint up, which is something that we've seen so much. And then the people behind the team realize how difficult it is to make an animated series. And I think like you know, with creating the initial 300 well, it was meant to be 333, but the initial 412 characters, you know, we very clearly set out at that point with this potential goal in mind, and the characters and story of this Weirdoverse has all kind of been built along these lines, and obviously, you know, it's really why we've wanted to not overpromise, is because it's, I think, potentially more dangerous than being quiet about what your intentions are. So, you know, I think now that we're in a position where we you know, can actually potentially like really start to realize this, but I feel also, you know, with how the community had responded to wanting to know what was going on, it just made perfect sense, I think, to be upfront about it. You know, we've been upfront about pretty much everything, as we like to call it, building out in the open. I think it's the only thing that we've been secretive about, you know, coming up to this point. So yeah, I think now is kind of back to building out in the open. And, you know, Jack mentioned how, again, we realize this is an audacious goal, but the kind of steps of the roadmap are, you know, it's essentially the correct steps, we believe, to get to achieve that in reality, and not just sort of be talking about it.
Yeah, I think that was something I reflected on too on Monday, that I think when we were talking about teasers and spoilers of the early stuff on the roadmap that was quicker and easier to deliver and get into collectors' hands sooner rather than later, it felt like the message was received as, oh, is that all you're doing? So what? I mean, you know, anyone can do you know, some artwork for a graphic novel, for example, or some vinyl toys, but that's not enough in this climate. So what are you really doing, and what are you actually doing to develop value? And actually, when you frame it like that, Ghost Breath, it makes perfect sense. You know, we've always had this enormous ambition to bring your animation skills to the table and take this as far as it can possibly go. And these smaller steps in the early runnings of developing the Weirdoverse actually build the credibility and the right to then knock on the door of a major network or whichever content distribution partner you care to mention, whether it's a Netflix or somebody else, once you've built out something that has earned the right to exist and have IP which has value, before you try and, you know, lock in a step like that. So people have been asking us, for example, you know, how confident do you feel that you can bring this to life? And quite honestly, it might never happen. I think we can be really honest and upfront about that and say it's entirely possible that there are absolutely millions of NFT projects trying to deliver an animated series to Netflix and will not earn the right to do so. But we have a lot of experience in this space. We have a lot of experience in animation as a project team, and we're building concrete steps in the roadmap so that we have a platform to then be heard. I think that's kind of the articulation that makes the most sense to me. So, you know, without further ado, Jack, would you like to sort of break into the first steps on the roadmap and how we plan to take those sort of, I suppose, early building blocks and bring them to life?
Yeah, and I think just to firstly reiterate, you know, we like to play things straight. Maybe that's been to our detriment so far. We've tried not to overhype things. We've tried to be very open and honest about the steps that we are taking, and you know, an animated series on Netflix or similar is a huge goal. Some just to give people kind of an understanding who are kind of outsiders, you know, these things on average can take months and years to get greenlit with major networks. So this is something that, you know, we believe that if you take some time to read the Weirdos' individual stories and see the humor and kind of connect with it, we believe we've got something with like some very special ingredients here. But the 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 goals and trying to achieve this outcome is a not insignificant task ahead of us. So what we want to do is we want to do it in the right way. We believe that this can only be done in the way that we want to do it, totally different from kind of the old ways of Web 2, is to really leverage the power of the amazing community, the sense of fun that we were having in the lead up to the mint out and and the reveal. Build on these open principles of Web3. Build together, build with you guys, build and girls, build in the open, share the journey with you, involve you, give you a seat at the table. Your weirdos, your clone and Genesis weirdos will give you this unique access point, this view of what's going on, and influence in, you know, the decisions and direction of the project as we move through the next kind of months and years. We're going to be totally open and transparent with you. We want you to kind of see behind the curtain, and we know that, you know, that there's a huge amount of appetite in the community members that we've spoken to understand more about kind of, you know, the processes, even the processes of, you know, getting to where we are. You know, like, most people think this is easy. Some of us have slept, you know, very, very little over the last 7 months and worked a hell of a lot to get it to where we are today. And fundamentally, it's like building this out in a systematic way, you know, with the professional individuals who, you know, in the team have got a very strong mix of operational experience, financial experience, animation experience, delivery and startups. We've got multiple time founders at the core of this team. So it's going to be necessary to build this project out in phases, and the first phase is kind of nearing completion. So the characters have been introduced to the world. You can see your OG stories OG weirdos with the stories, at least the base bios, it's kind of the tip of the iceberg constructed by Matt. You can now see your clone weirdos. No stories yet, which is important. No backstories yet, but that's in the making. As you can see from the roadmap, there's going to be the ability to customize in a very special and unique way the stories, the bios of your clone weirdos. So the next, what's beyond this? The next stage. Well, we've got the characters, we've got their base bios. What are we doing next? And really, what we've tried to do is build out a series of really engaging kind of community deliverables that are gonna build the foundations for us to kind of go on to the next level, to do things in a kind of a very fun community way, continuing to add value, to continuing to bring new members into our community and promote and build our brand and an understanding of the Weirdiverse in a way that makes it easier for us to kind of move to the next stage, the kind of the big ticket items of Project W, and you know, the ambition to launch a licensed animated series. So phase 2, building out the story, we're going to start with a bunch of really creative ways of kind of identifying the community's favorite characters. Those characters are going to have a special role in the future of the Weirdiverse. Rat Milk is going to be a key mechanism for powering the voting system that's going to help us choose our top weirdos. Following on from that, the kind of, many of you will have questions around kind of the battle royale, the cloning event, the characters that emerged from that, and what the story is behind those guys. Well, you know, it's something that Matt's been had in his mind for a long time, and where we're going to start there is with initially a free graphic novel cover of the comic for holders, and that graphic novel cover is going to be your access to the full story. So the full story will be will appear in an episodic fashion, chapters appearing. You'll be able to access and read those chapters using your Rat Milk, but it will start to kind of build out and explore and give you access to kind of like a parallel story in the Weirdiverse around the kind of what happened after the cloning event. So extremely excited about that, and all the kind of unveiling that next stage and starting to share with you kind of like the key structures of the different parts of the Weirdos backstory. Moving on from there, these, like, if you guys think about any major animated series, there are kind of protagonists in that, and you will probably be aware that having 10,000 main characters in a story is far too many, and we need to have kind of a very focused group of characters to go on to the kind of the next stage of any animated series. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the community to direct us into the favorite characters, and in phase 2 of this story, we're going to be telling the origin stories of those kind of most popular community favorites. Again, these animated shorts are going to be accessible to token holders only initially. So there'll be special privileges for those of you who are holding the tokens. Not, as Nick said when we dropped the kind of alpha, the teasers about the characters born as vinyl toys in isolation, they this maybe seemed a little bit underwhelming, but Matt and a lot of us have a huge passion for kind of the beauty and simplicity of vinyl toys, and the most popular characters in the story are going to be characterized as vinyl toys and available only to token holders. We've got lots of plans for games, weird games that again are going to unlock this story, surface the lore, bring out these characters, and help establish these foundations. But right now, the breadth of that is quite wide. But what we can say as a minimum, there'll be some kind of indie game building on the existing feeling, sentiment of fun that we've been having in the server for the last few months, actually. All of that is going to be kind of core foundations, along with a bunch of other surprises that we're not going to reveal yet. So whilst, as Nick said, we've listened to you, and we've heard that you know many of the community, especially those who are new, want to see and hear more about what the future holds. We believe still strongly that kind of this approach of continuing to drop surprises and delight the community with things that were unexpected is super important. So we're showing you some of what we've got today, but we're certainly not going to show you everything. We want to reserve the right to deliver collectors, supporters, that feeling that, you know, some of us got when BAYC dropped the doggos or dropped the mutants, and you just have this wonderful surprise one morning. So we're kind of going to stick to our guns quite heavily there. All of these things, plus kind of is worth saying, bolstered by the, building out some of the core team in, and making sure that we've got all of the appropriate skills areas covered. We think is going to put us in a credible position to firstly create a pilot of the Weirdos animated series, which will then be part of a wider campaign to launch that series, get the attention of a network, and ultimately get the series license. Now, what that means for collectors is, as we said, we want to kind of build on this principle of building in the open, being super transparent, and we recognize that whilst these goals are extremely, as Matt said, lofty, that even opening the doors and showing you behind the scenes of the steps, the trials and tribulations, the all of the activity that we possibly can that kind of takes us on the journey to achieve Project W. It's worth saying there's a bunch of other cool stuff that we kind of didn't feel like they were significant enough. They weren't big ticket items necessarily, but we know that people get a huge amount of like utility and value from them. Hopefully you've seen from the Clone collection and from the Genesis collection the amazing possibilities that there are for Weirdos merch. So that's definitely something that we're going to be doing. There will be more utility and rat milk yielding and collector dynamics driving that yielding around rat milk. We're not going to go into the details of that right now. There's still both a lot to be decided there, but you know, we're very excited to be opening up the rat milk economy even further. OG holders inevitably they backed us early. They own kind of the very early characters. Benefits will be you know, disproportionately allocated to some of those guys and girls. As I mentioned, there'll be an exciting way of customizing the stories and bios around your clones, and there's a lot more other very exciting surprises that we've, as I said, are determined to hold back just to give our collector community these moments of surprise and delight. So yeah, hopefully we've shown enough leg, is that an appropriate expression? Hopefully we've shown enough kind of promise and excitement, but by no means is this kind of the extent of you know, the plans for the future.
I think two things there. Firstly, it's the Weirdos, so it's not meant to be appropriate, but I think it's show a bit of skirt, I think is the
right.
sort of the British parlance for that phrase. But yeah, just a bit of the lower thigh might be the titillation that you're looking to achieve there. Now, one of the things that you were talking about there was talking about building in the open and with transparency. And there's a couple of questions that are coming in that I think are probably good to address in terms of the transparency angle that we're talking about here. So to Ghost Breath, people are asking about animation experience. So I thought it'd be a good juncture now, if you wouldn't mind, just to share some of your CV and your background and experience in animation, and why, in other words, heading down this road is credible and makes sense for us.
Cool. Yeah, I think that does make sense, of course. Obviously, I've spoken about this quite a lot in the AMAs we've done in the past with much smaller community. But yeah, I've been, as I mentioned a little while ago, a few minutes ago, I've been working in motion graphics specifically for 15 years. 10 of those I've been running my own company, and 5 years before that, obviously working for other various companies. I live in South Africa, so I had started my career here and moved to London and worked there for a few years, but decided ultimately to come back to South Africa. So yeah, when I did that, ran my own motion graphics company it was just going on 11 years until I discovered the NFT space last year, March. So yeah, in the time that I had been doing motion graphics, I'd animated, as I mentioned, like as well a little while ago, quite a lot of character work. Most of the time, it's not like, you know, a full series kind of world that you're working in. It's like far smaller budgets and that kind of thing, and far tighter deadlines. But a lot of the time, you still need to have the same kind of output in terms of quality. So I think, like, from my perspective, I've already worked with a lot of what's known as cell animators, people who, you know, draw animation frame by frame, or character animators who work with character animation programs, directing, you know, commercials with teams and employees that I've had myself. But I mean, I think obviously this isn't something that, you know, I like, being a person who has animation experience, not something that obviously, like, we would be saying that I would be animating or be involved with the actual animation, but it gives me a really good understanding of the kind of studios to approach, and yeah, I think like a realistic output on the production, essentially, both in terms of cost and in terms of the time it takes. So I would say like our first, so there's a lot, like obviously with having 15 years worth of animation experience that I could specifically go into, but there was when Adult Swim launched in South Africa, I was working for the company that was sort of managing their local branding, and I was myself doing all the promos for them. So we were doing a lot of like short animations and that kind of thing. So from our perspective, you know, even building shorts based around the original characters has been something that we were pretty much planning to do, regardless if we had sort of made the intention of moving into an animated series public or not. So you know, like the Weirdos are so heavily referenced in the world of animation. I love animation so much. As I keep on mentioning, I've been working in animation for basically my entire career. So it was just only natural for us to take things in that direction. And as Jack had mentioned, we've got such a strong character foundation that you can draw from, where, you know, I'd mentioned the 412 characters in the OG series. And I think like even a fractional amount of them, you can kind of create a basis for your main kind of cast. And yeah, I think like, so essentially I'm going off topic a bit, but I think the kind of experience in the world of animation just I would say gives me a very realistic understanding of what can be achieved, how to achieve it, and yeah, like I think how to correctly build the brand on that path. So, you know, no kind of real mistakes are made in terms of you know, like as I mentioned earlier, like overpromising is one big thing. So I think before you're in a position to mention wanting to do an animated series, I don't think that that's a wise thing to do. So, you know, I think now that we are in a position where you know, it's a realistic goal, you know, this is kind of yeah, I think the best direction for us to head. And yeah, so I'm not sure how specific I should get in terms of like the animation that I've done, but I think that's a good.
I think Matt, well, another thing that's just worth reiterating is that like what the community's what's last visible to the community is an emergence of you know, 9,272 new characters. What's worth saying is that, you know, behind the scenes, you know, this isn't, you know, we've been talking loosely about Project W for you know, for a very long time, since we launched a new website. We have been secretive about it, but you know, that doesn't mean that we haven't been taking steps towards what we've talked about today. Yes, we didn't want to kind of we didn't want to be pressured in potentially the way that we have been to kind of launch this surprise as early as we'd wanted to, but as early as we have done. But I think, you know, it's worth saying that we've, you know, been speaking to advisors, we've been speaking to people who are going to help us with the kind of future production. We've been working on these elements. So whilst you may see the kind of the most recent visible thing, there is a lot, you know, a lot behind the scenes. We've been planning towards this project for an extremely long time, and you know, for us, the most important thing was to make sure that we sold out, so that we kind of knew that we had the revenue in the coffers to kind of, to, you know, the budget to do what we wanted to do. So the most significant thing was for us to to sell out and get into a position where we could, had align these line items of what we need to do next with the money that we've got in the project. And and now starting to see the secondary revenues coming in. Obviously, out of the primary mint, there'll be payments for members of the core team. There'll be a budget that will go towards the future development of the project. All ongoing revenues from the secondary sales just going to go into the core project team. If you're interested, the company is Weird Industries. It's registered as a limited company in the UK. So this is a significant undertaking. Like I said, this is effectively a startup, a funded startup that has had, yes, it may have had 6 or 7 people working unpaid on this for 6-7 months, but now the funding is there. It's capitalized now, and we've done everything that we can to make sure that we have got the revenue to deliver the revenue to go on and execute on a complex and comprehensive project.
Cool. I'm just going to go back to the channel and start picking up some AMA questions, if that's okay with you guys at this point. Let me go back. We've had quite a lot, and it's great to have so much engagement in this, of course, but we've had some questions around our sort of marketing plans and collaborations with other well-known projects, and I'll start that one, and then maybe CryptoJack, if you've got anything there, feel free to chime in. So people have asked us what we're doing to sort of amplify our exposure in the space and create more noise and more hype. And I think, we've been, I don't say organic. I think that's kind of largely the approach in pre-sale. But obviously, as Jack said, we're now capitalizing and moving to a startup phase of a company where we've got funds and we can now start putting proper marketing plans, and whether there's going to be agencies involved as well, we're having conversations around that stuff as well. So when we talk about partnerships, we have so far been working with NFT projects in the main of similar sizes as we grew, building our collector base in the pre-sale phase. Now, our approach will be slightly different as we move forward, but we do plan to go back to that tried and trusted method of working with other projects and then having collaborations with them which are mutually beneficial. So do watch this space. Our focus in the last few days has very much been around the reveal process, and then having conversations like this with you about the roadmap and being really clear on what we want to do next. But when the dust settles after this, we will start picking up those partnership and collaboration conversations again, partly because we've got more time and we can focus on it, and partly because it's going to be beneficial to us to get this roadmap out into a much wider set of eyes in the NFT space. So we will be going back to that approach. And just for context, we delivered on 75 partnerships in the pre-sale. Some of those were with communities that are large. Some of them were smaller but were hyper engaged. Some were alpha groups. Some were individual collaborations, like our partnership with Tropo Pharma, the NFT influencer. And we tried lots of different channels and methods. We hosted AMAs, we went to other people's spaces, we were on Twitch, we did giveaways, we had other people's whitelists in our community and vice versa. And we will go back to that as well. And again, a lot of people have asked us whether we'll be going down the road of using, say, other people's allow lists, using Rat Milk to purchase them, and very similar to sort of the Lamex model with Creeps, or using Rainbows, which is an ERC20 of the Noundles project. I think that's entirely likely when we start thinking about our utility and how we start to incorporate it into Rat Milk as well. But look, we will start getting back onto the partnership conversation and the wider marketing plan from next week. So this week has just been about really concrete establishing our plans with you guys and checking that in with you. But yes, we are moving back to that phase of the project as we move forward.
Yeah, and I think it's worth just restating that it's very interesting how the partnership strategy adapts and needs to change over time, even through that pre-sale period. You know, when we started out, we had very little collateral to go and negotiate partnerships with, because we were pre-launch. You know, we had a small number of people in the Discord server. As we grew, that became easier, and we kind of, you know, got more of our pick of partners. But it's a super complex landscape, right? We now need to be thinking about the thinking more about the brand that we want to build, the future of this project, the types of projects that we want to partner with, and that needs to be kind of much more structured and effective and aligned with our direction of travel. And you know, Nick, you briefly mentioned this. Do we have any intention to kind of bring on representation? It's super interesting, this space. One of the lessons that kind of I think we've learned over the last 6 months, you know, even trying to kind of get on board our first marketing strategist and people to help us execute on this plan. Marketing in Web3 is such a misunderstood concept still, but 100% what we're going to be doing is sitting down, starting to work out a bit more detail what the most necessary elements of the team are. And I think it's fair to say that we know that more support on the marketing, PR, and promotion side is going to be important as we ramp up, and we have, you know, we've got budget necessarily reserved for that as part of our planning. Now that we're the other side of the mint, now that we kind of go into the next phase of project planning, and can start to address some of those things.
Yeah, I think also if there's anything like representation on the horizon, I think like the project would generally attract that sort of a thing, of the right type of you know, group. So yeah, I think we'd obviously, this being an adults themed project also makes it like quite specific. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's also worth saying that, you know, in the pre-sale period, you know, we have been approached by a number of PR agencies who are more excited about that adult brand, and we just kind of need to work through that now. I'd like to say there's been a small period of rest for the project team, because I know that like a lot of us need it, but I think we had a small afternoon off yesterday, and people are kind of like fully back into things already. So it's all systems go, and you know, then over the next starting early next week, we kind of move into the kind of next phase of planning and execution.
Cool. There's been a couple of questions around staking, specifically around sort of future utility. So I was going to take the lead on that one, and then again, maybe if Jack, if you have any further thoughts or want to take the roadmap in a different direction, then we haven't talked about, then do surprise us all. But we have been asked about whether we're going to plan on staking and yielding, and I think it's a fair question. I think when people ask about staking, they want to know basically how can you reduce the incentives to sell and take the supply off the market so that the supply is shocked and the token value goes up, right? So that they can unstake and sell for a much higher price. That's generally why people want to stake. You know, do they want a token for the sake of holding a token, or do they want the supply shock and the price value that goes along with that? So I get the question, I do understand it, but when we talk about Rat Milk and the economy around the Weirdoverse that we've built so far, we don't have an ERC20 token. At the moment, we're not planning on creating Rat Milk as an ERC20. I think our plans in the near term are to continue in its current guise. So we will be using Rat Milk, but the way that we distribute Rat Milk to the community is going to change. Now, we are going to follow up with more specific details around exactly what that looks like for each and every one of you, because it will be quite intricate how we deliver that, but it will be a mechanism akin to what it's like when you are earning yield and rewards from staking, but you won't be actively staking an NFT in and locking it up in someone else's contract. So that's just to head that one off. So there won't be a scenario where you have to send your NFT to another contract and then receive a token in return. In the way that people consider staking within the NFT space, I would say. But we are talking about Rat Milk more and more as we go forwards, and how that accrues and how that unlocks all these experiences on the roadmap that we're talking about. So Rat Milk will be a very central part to all of that, and acquiring that balance will remain very important. And the people with more will be able to do more as well. So it's definitely worth saying that at this point. In the pre-sale phase, we used to run a lot of games, and actually, it was one of the most fun phases of the entire project was how we make everything, amusing around quizzes and poker nights and all sorts of Discord fun, and we're going to bring that back. Now, it might not be at the exact same heavy metal frequency that we were doing 4 or 5 nights a week in the lead up to the mint, but it is going to start becoming a regular and settled pattern of community activity as we move forward. So I think a healthy community does look like we participate in fun and games all the time, but there'll be a purpose and a reason for doing so as well. And I think in this sort of interim period between minting and today, things have felt a little bit flat because there's been less reason to acquire Rat Milk. People haven't really understood what it is that it will do, and maybe we are being still a little bit shy on the exact specifics around the mechanism of how that's all going to break down for each individual. But it is still going to be a very, very, in fact, it's going to be even more important, I think, as we move forwards, rather than just as a means to acquire allow list. It's going to have multiple different functions, and so it is going to be central to everything that we talk about in this roadmap, and your ability to acquire it will return. We are going to start thinking more about the original fun and games that made this place cool. So don't take the sort of the answer to staking as a negative response, but we aren't actually doing staking in the traditional sense right now.
Yeah, I guess we're not trying to be a DeFi or GameFi project. As you can see here, we're very focused in our goal, and we know we've been in the lead up to the mint. We've been very clear that we resented and rejected project roadmaps that look like they're roadmap bingo and have just got a bunch of random hype building items on it. This roadmap is not that. It may have a number of things on it that may be more than people were expected, but each one of these things is a kind of a building block for the next stage. And the next stage and the final outcome, the single objective is Project W. It's taking this this story, these characters, this community, and taking us to a place where we can share this story, these weirdos with the wider world, and we're going to be absolutely focused on that and not distracted by kind of the unnecessary roadmap bingo items that kind of impact a lot of projects.
Cool. Look, unfortunately, we are coming back to similar questions here, so I do want to get into this in detail with you another time. But Jack, there's a lot of questions coming in around sort of the use of our project funds now that we're fully capitalized. I don't know if you want to say anything more on that in relation to things that you've already said, but of course we have a roadmap here that isn't going to come cheap. There's a lot of things that we want to do here which are going to take some development time, such as animation, such as game development. We obviously have talked about the first graphic novel, which is one of the very first items on the roadmap in phase 2 as well. Obviously we are able to do quite a lot for ourselves, but it's not all coming from the team as it's constructed today. So a lot of this, a lot of the funds that we've already raised will go to building out this team in specific deliverables against the roadmap. But is there anything else that you want to say around sort of the use of the funds, either sort of what we've accrued today or from the royalties as we move forwards?
Yeah, look, it's impossible not to be transparent about funds when we're talking about the blockchain. People are going to see where these funds are going. Right now, I think I've seen some questions about where did you know, a certain amount of ETH go to Coinbase and things like that. A lot of this, you know, to the last 6 months, 7 months haven't been free. Like, we've been self-funding this project. We're proud to say we're one of, a number of projects that pay our mods. We pay our social media team. We've spent a large amount of money on lawyers just getting to this point to make sure that the commercial and IP is set up in a way that is absolutely designed to facilitate and enable community members in taking their clone weirdos and doing what they want from them, building their own weirdiverses. There's a core team of 6 people here, many of whom have been full-time on this for 6-7 months. There's the future to think about. There's, as Nick mentioned, to build these animated shorts which are on the roadmap. That's something that's going to need production and an established, experienced team to work on building out the stories and starting to work on the comic and having people who are expert in not just the art side of a graphic novel, but the storytelling side. These are all things that we, like we said, have been taking into account for months, and we set the mint price at the price that it was, and targeted a sellout to ensure that we had enough money to fund the future, fund our ambitions, and get to the end goal of Project W. So, I don't know. I don't know. There's much more that I can say beyond that. This is, as I said, a well capitalized startup, and we believe we have enough money independent of the royalties that we're bringing in to do the things that we want to do. What's happening with the royalties? Well, the royalties are all going to go back into the company coffers, so they're not being automatically distributed to the team who've worked on it to date. Those are monies that are going to be used to continue to pay for all things to build the Weirdiverse, but they're not in terms of our budgeting. They're kind of added extras that will help keep us in good balance and well funded, rather than us being dependent on royalties to deliver what we've said we're going to set out and do on the roadmap.
Yeah, good answer. And it's just worth echoing that people do need to be paid. It is not free work. It's been going on for months and months, and people will continue to work on this and continue to need to be paid in order to deliver products. It's not a free enterprise, of course. And I think people really do understand that as well. But it's really, I want to be explicit on that. There's a team that's going to grow, and there's going to be an opportunity to deliver some really cool stuff in this space. But yeah, as Jack quite rightly says, its future success will be, largely dictated by what we've already done to date. So it's not a case of needing, number go up for royalty to go up so that we can, deliver the stuff that we've already articulated. And I think that's quite important to get across at this point. A couple of questions around Ape and whether we have a partnership with BAYC as a result. But I think we talked about our intention to mint with ApeCoin a lot in the pre-sale phase. So if you guys have missed that, then the basic story there was that we wanted to do things a little bit differently. We've been trying to innovate right the way through as we headed into the mint as well. We wanted to be the first to do it as well. We thought it'd be cool to do things, slightly differently to other projects. We also wanted to almost show our deference and tribute to Yuga Labs, because it's been a project which has obviously influenced so much in this space, ourselves specifically as well. CryptoJacker, noted ape holder himself. I used to be a BAYC token holder, and we've always had respect for the moves that they've taken and the way that they've approached their work. Often, as we said from the very beginning, building in silence and then producing moments of of genuine delight without really spoiling their announcements in advance. So, heavily influenced by BAYC and Yuga, we wanted to pay tribute to them by, using what is now soon to be the NFT currency of choice across a number of different projects when other side I should say starts to grow and develop. But no, we don't have a specific partnership with other side or BAYC, much as we would love to. I think we need to earn the right to do things like that as we grow. That's not a day one realistic conversation, but it is something that we would have obvious aspirations to achieve, but we've got to earn the right through all these steps on the roadmap before we get to stages like that where we're credibly knocking on the door of those blue chip projects that are all aligned on day one of the other side project.
Yeah.
Okay, we've got 5 minutes here. Let's go back through some of the questions. I mean, we're doing quite well on time, actually. Oh yeah, okay. So I think we're going to leave this one for now, but it has come up a couple of times because it's obviously quite interesting. In our roadmap, we've talked about clone customization, and people are clamoring to know what that actually means. I think there are going to be some areas of this roadmap we're not going to fully detail and articulate. We really do want to provide some surprises, and not explaining absolutely everything in our roadmap shouldn't be seen as the project can't be trusted and that we're hiding from you. We just want to deliver some cool things and surprise you. But when we talk about customization, we have previously spoken to the community around AI descriptions and then using a tool to deliver the same sorts of bios and characteristics in the description of each of the clone weirdos as we have for the Genesis and the OG using an AI tool. So we can confirm that is still going to happen, and we are still developing that for sort of a fairly near-term release as well. So just so you're aware, I know lots of people have heard us talk about it before, and it's kind of wrong for us to suddenly go quite quiet on that. So we aren't. We're saying it now. But when it comes to clone customization, we don't intend to stop there. And that's all I'm going to say on that.
Yeah, we're very excited by that. I think it's going to be lots of fun, and we're going to kind of wrap it in with some of the kind of wider discussions that we've spoken about around rat milk utility and keeping things super fun and very brand aligned.
There was one final question around the game and whether it's a board game or a digital computer game. And just to be really explicit, the reference is to a digital game, not to a physical board game. I mean, we'll never say never to rule one out over the other, but the reference in the Medium article is a digital game. But we're not limiting ourselves to everything on this roadmap. And it's partly why roadmaps are really dangerous. Dangerous is probably the wrong word, but dangerous from a perception point of view that this is all you're thinking about and this is all you plan to deliver. I think we should acknowledge at this point that roadmaps need to be fluid and flexible. The meta in NFTs has changed every couple of months. GameFi was a massive deal around December time. Before that it was something else and something else before that, and we need to be agile and not lock ourselves into just a few things. As things start to emerge, we should have the humility to say we need to also be discussing this, because this is going to be enormously brand additive to our ultimate goal of developing an animated series on a major network. And that's going to be okay. I think we can come back and say, look, we've had new thoughts and new ideas, and we want to focus in these areas too. So just bear with us as we start to evolve. But this is very much our confirmed intention for today. But yes, I'm not saying no to a board game, but it's not how it's written.
Yeah, and I think it's just worth. Oh, sorry, Matt, go on.
No, you go first.
I was just going to say, I think it's worth adding, like, nothing has changed in our intent to keep this community objective of being the most fun place on Web3, a safe place for people to get away from the norms of their life, be weird, feel comfortable, be amongst friends. We've seen, obviously, and we're going to continue to see a lot of conversations in the lodge around pricing, but it's very much at the front and center of our minds to keep this the amazing community feels, that sense of fun that we had in the lead up to the mint. So, you know, when we say games there, and the reason I mention that is when we say games there, we fully intend to continue to create these fun community experiences for everybody along our journey to kind of deliver this kind of Project W and this animated and series. In fact, in my mind, you know, it's absolute necessity that we do that, because that is kind of core to the kind of community led growth approach that we've kind of seen so far.
Cool. Yeah, and I think like to add to that, the you know, in terms of the games, I'm not going to lie, I love the idea of an actual board game as well, and it's something that I definitely personally had thought of as well a few months ago. But ultimately, it's just along the roadmap. You know, it's digital games are something that are far more achievable. There's quite a few really talented and successful indie game companies based in South Africa. I don't know why we've got this just quite a large amount of great game companies. So like I know a couple of people in these companies, and I've got like quite a lot of insight into, you know, what it takes to make a game. So it's, you know, similar in terms of the insight based around animation. And I think, like, you know, it's a similar trap that people get caught up in, where they can promise a AAA game something, you know, like Pixelmon, and people not really realize, like, before, when they're making that promise, you know, before everyone is minted, that they don't realize that even with their full amounts of mint, that's like impossible for them to have made a AAA game that's like in a metaverse type of space. So I think, like, you know, managing expectations realistically is such an important thing, and like actually delivering things that are like really cool. So, you know, when coming up to this mint, we already just like made a very, very basic sort of game, as everyone knows. That was, I had so much fun with that. But yeah, I mean, like, we really want to build on that and make games that are, you know, really well crafted and cool and engaging and fun. And just kind of keep on building the brand through these type of experiences, and not sort of just be throwing buzzwords around. And I think that's what's been so important for us, you know, up until coming up to this point. So yeah, as we develop games, I think it's something that we really want to do, and not be like, okay, we put games on the roadmap and then, you know, tell people that it's going to be some AAA game and then the game never actually happens. Like, that is the worst when that kind of thing happens. So yeah, from my perspective, it's about like delivering, you know, things that are achievable, really well crafted and really cool.
I can't wait to play it personally. Okay, cool. I think sorry, go on. Were you going to say something before we wrap up?
No, I just said me too. I can't wait either.
Yeah. It's that sort of interactivity that I think people will you know, really lean into. So I can't wait to do something fun like that for us as soon as possible. But you know, we are going to need our time to build stuff, and I think that's really important and healthy to acknowledge that this stuff doesn't happen overnight. People will ask when. That's going to be the next question, of course. When everything, when it's ready, you know, we will start providing announcements around timescales when we're certain that we can deliver within a certain timescale. You know, any project roadmap that I've seen where dates have been put up front and center have invariably had to be pushed back, and I don't mind that, as long as people, you know, acknowledge that is part and parcel of, you know, startup ambition, is to set goals which sometimes, you know, are more complicated than initially scoped out and end up getting pushed. So I think that one of the things that we've come to is, as we get closer to the delivery dates on these things, we will start putting dates on them, but only when we've got maximum certainty that we are going to deliver around that time, not now when we're scoping out, looking at the foothills of these challenges and trying to put them into exact months. So we're going to be very clear on that with you as we move forwards, and we are going to keep hosting AMAs. I think they're going to drop in frequency as we start to build. I think we were operating at a level that was relatively unsustainable in the lead into the Mint. We were doing twice a week. We were hosting stuff in the community every single evening, and we'll still be here. We'll still be interacting with you regularly, but the schedule and the frequency of these newsletters in Medium and the follow-ups and AMAs is going to start to get into a slightly steadier pattern than we've been experiencing in the community in recent weeks and months. So I hope you bear with us as we start to put some genuine strides into some of these roadmap items, because we can't wait to start ripping into them and giving them back to you. But that's kind of it from me. I don't know if you've got any final words, either of you two, before we wrap up.
Mainly just again, like a massive thanks to everybody. Like the community support means a hell of a lot to us. It's been hard kind of keeping some of these secrets to ourselves while we've seen people talking about them in the lodge, but we are, even if myself, Matt, aren't always talking and sharing comments in the lodge, our eyes are there all the time. We're very much tuning in to kind of what the community is saying, what they want. We appreciate your feedback and support, and we're going to continue to keep you like well caught up on all the things that we're doing. So the kind of newsletter that you've seen today will become a bit of a pattern, as Nick said, as we approach the delivery of things. We'll make you aware of them, and as always, and as we've always said, we will be dropping some surprises along the way.
Yeah, cool. I think I would pretty much say the same as Jack. I just, again, want to reiterate that thanking the entire community, like everyone, for such amazing support. It's been a tough 6 months, 7 months. So really, really looking forward to moving forward.
Me too. All the best, everyone, and we will be in touch again soon. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Cool. Bye.